Wendy and I have a long history together. We worked together when she was in Mayor Bradley's office, working on homelessness issues together. I've watched the trajectory of her career, and I'm very pleased and honored to have her here to share with you her words for a few minutes about her candidacy for mayor. Wendy?
Thank you very much. And you want me to stand down here? Is that the...
That's all right.
I had a handheld mic, so appreciate it. And good morning to all of you. And if you can only imagine, here, we can just put it here if you want to. You want to put it right here? Okay. I told her I'm used to having everything I'm doing taped right now, so welcome the taping. But if you'd ask us, 5, 6 years ago, that you'd have this many people in a room, the diversity of Los Angeles, of talking about the kinds of transportation systems we want to have in LA. If you had said we would have gotten Measure R passed by 67.8 that first time, and that was a squeaker, I would have been shocked. But today we stand here with a lot of high hopes, and we have some more challenges. And so there were 2 questions that you asked us to address. One, of course, was, would I be committed to ensuring that Measure R projects move forward in the implementation? Absolutely yes. When I sat we were up in a little hotel room that night when Measure R was on the ballot, and literally it was Zev and Mike Fewer and Richard Katz, and we were looking at those numbers just thinking, oh, imagine this. 66.7% is a squeaker. So that means just a little over 30% of the people can decide what we can't have. That's what happened, unfortunately, in Measure J. Just let me tell you today, I will support us going back to the voters and getting us Measure J passed when I'm mayor of Los Angeles. We need that. It's important for all of us to do that. So, with many of you, we worked, as I was chair of Transportation Committee, on the importance of not only having the strategic plan, but making sure that we pass Measure R, that we look at implementation. And when we look at transit-oriented development, and I was very pleased to see the document this morning that was handed out that talked about the transit-oriented cabinet. Because think about, how many of you were here when we opened the first leg of the subway with Mayor Tom Bradley? Were many of you here? Okay. Think about it. Was there any plan around those sites? A little bit, but we weren't thinking about that. When you go to the city of Los Angeles and you talk to people about transit corridors, and I know this because as a council member, people had a different response of what a transit corridor was. Today in Los Angeles, transit corridors are many things. And transit-oriented development needs to ensure that we understand what we're going to develop around that. We need to make sure that everyone understands that it's an investment in our communities. Because no longer can we be a city that says public transportation is for someone else to take. It's exciting in LA. People are asking for transportation. But we need to make sure that when we plan ahead that we have everyone at the table, and the next mayor will need to make sure that all of the communities are represented, the stakeholders are represented, and that we invest in our money wisely. As Art Leahy was talking about, the importance of those federal dollars. We need to be competitive, and the City of Los Angeles and the MTA have to be partners in applying for those dollars. The City of LA, working with the business community, has to make sure we get those dollars, because we are a donor state. We give more money to the federal government than we have here, than we get back, and that needs to change. Because public transportation is streets, it's sidewalks, it's rail, it's bus, it's everything you can imagine to make sure that we have that seamless public transportation system. And as I go around the city of Los Angeles, it doesn't matter whether you're in the West Valley, you're in San Pedro, you're East Side, South LA, West Side, it's important. And people are making decisions about whether or not they're going to live in LA, move their business to LA based on traffic. Because how many of you thought about this morning as you were driving, how long is it going to take me based on traffic, right? That's what you do. We don't even think about, we're just driving to a certain location. So it is important. So we need to make sure that in each of the locations that there is housing around those transit corridors. And we need to make sure that we're working with the businesses so there's a jobs housing balance. The future of Los Angeles depends on us stopping the kind of pathway we have today, which is the traffic that clogs our neighborhoods, because it does impact our lives. If you live west of the 405, you are a prisoner in your own home before 9 o'clock and after 2 o'clock. Took me an hour and 15 minutes just to get from Bundy and Wilshire to the 405 one day. That is not acceptable. We need to make sure that from the San Fernando Valley, you go under the 405 to get, I believe, to get and hook up to the subway to the sea. So as you sit here today, many of you have invested in Los Angeles, not only in your ideas and your money and public-private partnerships, but the strategies that we will need to implement mean we will have to stick together. This room 5 or 6 years ago would have been a third of what we see today. And I want to compliment you, Denny, for all that you've done to bring all of us together to make sure that it happens. And that it's not just the city of LA, it is the county of LA. It is all of those 88 cities that will make sure that we implement our transit-oriented development in the future. And so when we look at our future, it has to be affordable, convenient, safe in our transportation, but more importantly, we have to roll up our sleeves and just get the job done. So as mayor of Los Angeles, I look forward. Denny, when's your next event?
June.
June. Okay, by then I will be mayor. There you go. June. June.
The election will be over, but I think the installation will not
I'd
yet.
like to say March 5th, but but I think it'll be May 21st. And so let's work together. Let's use, for me, my experiences of not only being chair of transportation, but being in the Department of Housing and Urban Development and working for a mayor who had a dream that we could have a public transportation system that worked for everyone, no matter where you lived in LA. As I've said, I want to be a mayor for all of Los Angeles so that no part of LA is left behind. And that is emblematic whether or not you're talking about housing, transportation, public safety, social services. And that's what we need for Los Angeles to come together. And this group that has been talking about it has invested in Los Angeles. Let's dream together about what that can happen, but let's make it a reality. And to do that, we're going to have the kinds of funds that we have for Measure R, Measure J, and I want to have it in my lifetime that it will be here. So I'm counting on all of you to make that happen, and together we can do it. Thank you very, very much for having me today.
Thank you.